Gavin Newsom is quite literally the only one fighting fire with fire. Part of this, one reason is that Gavin Newsom loves to play politics. Obviously, the second is that he loves to clown on Republicans. That is one of the few lines of agreement that Gavin Newsom and I have. I love clowning on Republicans. I love clowning on Republican lawmakers because they are despicable human beings. They're pussies, they're losers, they're crybabies, and someone needs to fight back against fascism. Unfortunately, I, as some shit in my house, do not have as much power and influence as Gavin Newsom, right? The governor of the biggest state in the country, the largest state in the country, of the most economically productive state in the country. And that's really unfortunate because my policy agenda is infinitely better than Gavin Newsom's. However, most people don't give a shit about policy. They only give a fuck about like the optics of this situation. They only give a fuck about the vibes of the situation, right? The American voter base largely votes based on vibes. And right now, Gavin Newsom's vibes are pretty immaculate if you only pay attention to what's going on online. His press office has been tweeting just nonstop, tweeting just like Donald Trump. They actually posted a banger today that I found really funny where they called Chairman Trump. They acknowledged Chairman Trump turning the United States into a socialist utopia because the United States just bought a 10% stock in Intel. That is, by definition, well, not technically not by definition a socialist thing, but that is like socialist communist tendencies. You have the government involving itself in private business. But he's been doing like all kinds of shit, making up nicknames. I said all this in the beginning, and as a result, conservatives are in a fucking chokehold over it. They cannot stop talking about Gavin Newsom. Now, there are much more pressing things for them to be talking about. I shifted this segment to the very end of the show because there are actual things going on in the world related to Ghislaine Maxwell, related to the famine in Gaza. There are other things as well that I didn't talk about, like Las Vegas tourism being down considerably this year, which is highly indicative of a recession. I haven't talked about grocery prices going up, how the price of vegetables is up 38%, how the price of energy is up 5.5%, and the consumer price index is only up by 2.7%, which means that the cost of energy is outpacing the cost of inflation. There are so many ridiculous things, so much damaging shit that conservative media could talk about. But instead, they just want to talk about Gavin Newsom. Here's Dana Ding Dong Perino, talking about Gavin Newsom's tweeting rampage. Now, this clip in particular is notable because everything that she says in this clip about Gavin Newsom is what you can say about Donald Trump. She later on doubled down on this and was like, oh, I understand the joke, but we're just not in on it. Gavin Newsom is doing this entirely satirically. They act as though he's jockeying Trump style, that he's riding his dick, that he's biting his swag. You know, he stole my whole flow, word for word, bar for bar. No, he's doing this to highlight how fucking insane it is when a sitting politician that is as powerful as Donald Trump tweets in this manner.
For the last week, Gavin Newsom, why am I giving him advice? You have to stop it with the Twitter thing. I don't know where his wife is. If I were his wife, I would say, "What? You are making a fool of yourself."
Where is Melania, lady? People said this about Trump in his first term, that he's too unhinged online. Normies, right? Normies. People in my fucking family who are not politically active were saying to me, yeah, it's really weird that he tweets like this. It is not presidential for him to go online and call Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man. Is it funny? Yeah, it's fucking hysterical. But no, a sitting president should not be behaving like that. This is what we call horseshoe theory, right? Where this is typically related to like you go so far to the left that you become right wing or vice versa. Where Dana Perino is criticizing Gavin Newsom in the same exact way that she could be criticizing Donald Trump. And none of them realize this because they are too fucking stupid. They're too blinded by their love for this man, for Donald Trump. They're too blinded by that to recognize like, oh wait, maybe it is fucking weird that Donald Trump tweets like this all the time. But no, when Donald Trump does it, it's based and cool. But when Gavin Newsom does it, it's cringe and gay.
Do not let your staff tweet. And if you're doing it yourself, put the phone away and start over. And if he's got a big job as governor of California, but if he wants an even bigger job, he has to be a little bit more serious.
Oh,
the thing is, or at the debate.
Yeah, be a little bit more serious, right? Because politics nowadays is so fucking serious. There's nothing more serious than American politics post 2016. It is quite actually the most serious type of politics that has ever existed. We are definitely not a fucking clown show. We are not embarrassing ourselves on the world stage by having Donald Trump be our president twice. But no, it's unserious when Gavin Newsom does it. And in fact, very serious when Donald Trump does it. Sean Hannity is another guy who spent a lot of time talking about Gavin Newsom. He actually dedicated multiple segments to Gavin Newsom. Why are you tweeting? Like, Gavin Newsom shouldn't be tweeting like this. He's got a state to run. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has a whole fucking country to run. And he's tweeting like this. This clip that we're gonna
joining us now,
that we're gonna discuss is Ted fucking Cruz. And I picked this one because the hypocrisy is extra glaring with Ted Cruz.
You know, I'd love to do another debate with Gavin Newsom and Governor DeSantis, my governor, or maybe if maybe you should debate.
Gavin Newsom would dog walk all three of those guys, unfortunately. The reality of the situation is there is no better politician in the United States of America right now at playing politics, at debating, at being theatrical than Gavin Newsom. He seeks out debate. He is a fucking psychopath, right? You guys have to recognize this. Gavin Newsom is a deeply deranged individual. He will go out of his way to have 2-on-1 debates with a prominent conservative on Sean Hannity's fucking show.
Gavin Newsom. I think we should all have the conversation publicly. If he wants to act like Donald Trump, let's see if he can pull it off.
Sean Hannity would ask Gavin Newsom, would you be able to destroy the United States of America as quickly as Donald Trump is doing right now? Governor Newsom, did you know that Las Vegas tourism, the tourists in Las Vegas have decreased by 400,000 this year under President Donald Trump? Are you committed to the American people and to the citizens of Las Vegas to doubling, perhaps even tripling those numbers? Governor Gavin Newsom, are you committed to increasing energy prices by greater than 5.5%, just like Donald Trump has done to begin his presidency?
Happy to do that. You know, Gavin Newsom is very good at being slick. He's very good at running away from the facts and running away from the record. But you think about California.
Is he good at running away from the state of Texas when the power grid goes down? Is he good at running away to Cancun when the power grid goes down and then blaming his 13-year-old daughter because she wanted to go on vacation? Ted Cruz? Yeah? Okay. The press office of Gavin Newsom tweeted Ted Cruz saying this with the picture of Cancun Cruz at the airport with his mask on.
California has massive advantages. It has beautiful scenery, beautiful natural resources. The Pacific Ocean is gorgeous. The mountains are incredible. The weather is 75 degrees all day long. It's been blessed to be an incredible economic engine of this country for decades, and it is amazing. I spend a lot of time in California. As you know, my wife Heidi is a native Californian. When I'm out there, I look around and I'm like, how did these people manage to screw this place up? And it's a combination of every bad left-wing idea. So it's out of control taxes, it's out of control regulations, it's out of control lawsuits. You try to start a business, you'll get sued like crazy. Your house gets burned down in a fire, you can't rebuild the house, you can't afford it. You couldn't get insurance because the lawsuits are so bad there, no one would insure your house to begin with. And you know what? Before your house burned down, you had people breaking in and robbing it because the police there won't prosecute criminals. They won't lock up someone who attacks you. Their view is abolish the police. Their view is let the criminals go. And that's not.
The murder rate in Texas is higher than California, by the way. You're more likely to be homicided in Texas than California. The reason why California sucks in the eyes of Republicans is not left-wing policy. It is quite literally the absence of left-wing policy. The reason why there are so many homeless people is because Gavin Newsom doesn't want to build more fucking housing. He doesn't want to do anything to address the cost of living crisis. The reason why Gavin Newsom is a shit governor is because he is a neoliberal asshole who prioritizes the well-being of corporations over his own constituents. Even with that said, Gavin Newsom has delivered on some decent promises. $20 minimum wage for fast food workers is tremendous. But with every fucking policy like that, there is a caveat. In this instance, it is Panera Bread workers being excluded from that because one of Gavin Newsom's mega donors owns like 24 Panera Breads. Do we remember when Gavin Newsom wanted the state of California to manufacture their own insulin and that never happened? Gavin Newsom has the opportunity, the influence, and the platform to be the driver of so much progressive policy, and he fucking refuses to do so. That is why I get so fucking frustrated with this dipshit when he garners so much national attention. He is the last person that should be the front runner for the Democratic Party in 2028. The American people do not want another neoliberal corporate dipshit running the country. But even still, Gavin Newsom would be a better option than any Republican president. I stand by that. However, even with my admittance of that fact, he should not be prioritized over AOC, over Andy Bashir, fuck it, even over Tim Walz. He simply shouldn't be.
Not to mention the illegals that Gavin Newsom is inviting in. If you're an illegal alien, come to California. If you're a Venezuelan gang member, come to California. If you're a murderer or rapist, Gavin Newsom wants you to come to California. And the double standard, look, I get how Hollywood gazillionaires can live in opulence along the Pacific Ocean. But it is incredibly hard for working men and women. If you're a cop in California, if you're a teacher in California.
Cops are not working class. That's a fucking lie. It's hard to be a working class person in California because of capitalism. It really is. Because of the lack of a robust social safety net. Like, you can't afford housing because the property management firms and the landlords just jack up the price because they fucking can. And Gavin Newsom has no interest in stepping in and saying, no, actually, you can't charge $4,500 for a 2-bedroom apartment in West Hollywood. No, that's fucking ridiculous. Why would anybody allow that? It's also rich that Ted Cruz is talking about all of the ills of California, but those same ills plague every other major metropolitan area across the country, or every other major state across the country. And yet I don't recall him introducing legislation nationally to provide workers with more benefits, right? He's not looking to do healthcare reform, which would alleviate some of the stress of these California residents that he cares so deeply about, apparently. He hasn't introduced legislation for universal childcare, which is a major, major financial hurdle for people in prominent states like New York, California, presumably Florida, as well as Texas, because Texas is quite a populous state as well, with multiple major metropolitan areas. These people, conservatives, talk about all of the ills that plague these states, but they never offer a solution because they don't give a fuck. They don't give a damn about fixing a problem, because the second that they fix this problem, they have no talking points about how bad Democratic policies are. Furthermore, when Gavin Newsom does introduce a possible solution to these problems, they clown his ass and saying that he's a woke lefty and that he's super progressive. Like, they don't give a fuck about anything, man. They don't. The only thing that Ted Cruz cares about is Israel. The only thing that Lindsey Graham cares about is Israel. If that weren't the case, they would do what I do. They would clown Gavin Newsom and some of his inept policies while also providing a tangible solution to all of the things that he refuses to address.
If you're an electrician in California, it is really tough to make ends meet. And there's a reason the people of California are fleeing. They are fleeing and coming to Texas. One of my favorite statistics, Sean, the cost of a one-way U-Haul from California to Texas is more than 300% the cost of a U-Haul going the other way around, because they're all going one way. They ain't going the other. And I'll give you an even more stunning statistic. The cost of a one-way U-Haul from Silicon Valley to Austin, Texas, is more than 500% the cost of a U-Haul going the other way, because no one's going the other way.
Because you're doing U-Haul a favor if you're going from Texas to California. You are.
Who gives a shit? You're talking about U-Hauls when there are 300,000 homeless people in Los Angeles. If you were a serious person, you would tell Gavin Newsom to build more housing for these people. No, you don't give a fuck.
Actually doing U-Haul a favor by getting that vehicle or that trailer back to California for more people to even exit. What do you make of the fact the Democratic Party is such an identity crisis? They're paying tens of millions of dollars how to communicate with men. You see these different iterations, if you will, of Gavin, Gavin the podcaster, sitting down with Bannon and Charlie Kirk. Then it's Gavin trying to be Donald Trump. What you don't see is Gavin lowering crime rates. You don't see Gavin fixing his broken schools. You don't see Gavin helping the people in Pacific Palisades. You don't.
Has lower rates of homicide than Texas. It has lower rates of rape than Texas. The robbery and aggravated assault rates of California and Texas are comparable. These statistics pan out all across the country. You are far more likely to be crimed in a red state than in a blue state. You're more likely to be homicided in a red state than in a blue state. Like, fixing the broken school system, you're talking to someone from fucking Texas. They don't believe in education in red states, right? What do you mean California's broken school system? What the fuck does that mean when you're talking to someone from the state of Texas?
See Gavin, out there rolling up his sleeves and getting the job done. And I don't know, maybe he thinks this is going to work. Maybe that'll rile up at the base of the Democratic Party that's radicalized, but that's not going to sell. America does not want to be California, especially in its current condition.
No. Look, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has abandoned common sense. You look at the principles that make Texas such a success, that make Florida such a success. Low taxes, low regulations, reasonable lawsuits. You let small businesses and entrepreneurs create small...
Shut the fuck up. Normal people don't care about regulation. Holy shit. This is such a capital pill talking point. Oh my God. It's so fucking... It's so fucking frustrating. They keep talking about regulation. No one gives a fuck. No one gives a fuck about regulation when they can't pay their rent, when they're spending $150 on groceries every week, when they're struggling to pay their fucking electric bill, when they can't take any time off of their fucking job to spend with their newborn child, when they're up to their fucking dick in medical debt. No one gives a shit about anything that Ted Cruz just said. You can talk about low taxes all you want. The unfortunate reality is that when a state doesn't have income tax, you pay for it in other ways, whether it's property tax, whether it's in Florida's instance, tolls on literally every fucking highway. The reality is, if you want to live in any major metropolitan area, which is where the majority of Americans live, you are going to be paying more to live there than the national average, than in rural areas. That's just the fact. But it comes with the additional amenities of living in a major metropolitan area. But getting back to all of the shit that makes quote unquote Texas a success, I don't understand how you can apply this rubric at all, right? Like, what does that mean? Yeah, okay, you have low taxes, but your power grid fucking fails every year. What is the trade-off there? And I'm not saying this to bash Texas. I'm sure Texas is a fine place to live. I'm more so just frustrated with Ted Cruz because he's not looking to fix any problems. He's just looking to continue talking about these problems. He doesn't want these problems to go away.
Businesses and succeed. You secure the borders, you support law enforcement, you protect people's families, you protect people's children, and you protect people's constitutional rights, their free speech, their religious liberty, their Second Amendment.
What about their right to smoke weed, Ted Cruz? Why is weed not legal in Texas yet? What's Texas's minimum wage? Is it $7.25 an hour? What about that? What about abortion rights in Texas? These are the things that people care about. Deregulation, low taxes, like, okay, you're on mainstream media, you're on, the oligarch news network. I understand you have to hit the talking points. The reason why Republicans are unpopular is because they're detached from working class issues. It's really that simple. The reason why the Democratic Party is largely unpopular right now is because they're detached from working class issues. I can't say it any other way.
None of that is radical, none of that is extreme, and yet Gavin Newsom and the rest of the Democrat Party, they exist for one purpose right now, to hate Donald Trump. You look at President Trump federalizing the police in D.C. Just this week, we've seen crime rates in D.C. plummet, robbery rates, carjacking rates plummet, and the Democrats like Gavin Newsom, they are booing, they are unhappy. The corporate media, they are booing, they are unhappy. God. And you know what this is illustrating? That all the rest of these Democrat cities could reduce crime too. It reminds me, Sean, of when Gavin Newsom, when President Xi from China came to San Francisco, Newsom cleaned up all the homeless people and drug addicts, and that told all the people of San Francisco he could have done it last week or last month, but he didn't because they didn't matter nearly as much to him. Their kids didn't matter as much as the leader of communist China.
First of all, Gavin Newsom goes out of his way to clear homeless encampments. I don't know what the fuck Ted Cruz is talking about. He's done this like probably more than a dozen times as governor of California. Just back to deploying the fucking National Guard and federalizing the police. If you think that the way to reduce crime is to turn major cities into a fucking police state, you're a dipshit. Why turn Washington, D.C. into North Korea? Oh, yeah, because it's easier than actually tackling crime as a societal problem, as an economic problem, as a social ill. It's easier than doing that. And it goes back to my point. Republicans don't actually want to solve any of these problems that they continually bitch about, because the second that they solve these problems, the Republican Party ceases to exist. The Republican Party still today, the only reason the Republican Party exists is because they continue to highlight everything that sucks about the United States. They're just fucking, they're pussies, they're bitches, they're crybabies. They don't actually have an agenda. They don't give a shit about solving anything. They just want everything to be a problem, because that's how they stay relevant. We're going to close out this segment on Gavin Newsom with, oh my gosh, Harry Enten specifically talking about how newly popular Gavin Newsom is.
Who know Gavin Newsom best, those voters out in California, those California Democrats. California Democrats on Newsom for governor, you go back to 2023, just 35% wanted him to run for president. Look at the percentage now who are excited for a run for president for Gavin Newsom. What is that? That's a 40-point climb. My goodness gracious, a rising tide of support for
Holy
Gavin Newsom.
Toledo.
Remember,
this is extraordinary. I cannot believe that 75% of Californians polled, California Dems, want him to run for fucking president. That is insane. Also, just a friendly reminder, California is not the hellhole that conservatives make it out to be. New York City is not the hellhole that conservatives make it out to be. That is merely propaganda. If California were such a hellhole, why the fuck does Ted Cruz keep going back? Right? I went to California in July. I experienced it. It was awesome. I had a great time. Were there issues? Like, are there issues with homelessness in LA? Yeah, certainly. But again, that is not the result of progressive policy. That is the result of a lack of progressive policy.
Back in 2023, the majority of Democrats did not want Joe Biden to run for another term, but California Democrats in Gavin Newsom's home state did not want him to run either. And now 75% are excited for him to run. And more than that, he's getting a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris in her home state. He is beating the former vice president, who, of course, was the Democratic nominee in 2024. As I said, a rising tide of support for the California governor.
And we always say it's very early to be looking at 2028 polling. But why is California polling so important?
Why is it so important? Because I want you to take a look. It's one of those benchmarks, the home state polling for presidential candidates. If they can't win the primary in their home state, they ain't going to win anywhere. What are we talking about? Pres nominees and home state primaries. All of them won. All the nominees won. And all of them led in the early polls. So yes, winning California is not tantamount to winning the nomination, but it is one of those stepping stones that you have to make it to if you, in fact, want to win the nomination historically. And of course, in California, it has the most delegates out of any of the states that, of course, take part in the Democratic primary.
How are things looking nationally for Democrats?
Okay, so we're looking at the states, right? We're looking at Gavin Newsom's home state, but how about nationally? Does what we're seeing in California translate nationally? Chance of being the 2028 Democratic nominee, according to the prediction markets. Back on June 1st, before all this strategy, before all this confrontation with Donald Trump, you saw Gavin Newsom 11%, AOC at 10, Buttigieg at 8. Look at where Gavin Newsom has shot up to now. 27% now is the clear front runner, not at 50% plus, but still the clear.
The Newsom Buttigieg ticket for 2028 is hell. It is an absolutely disastrous ticket. It's horrible. It fucking sucks. It will be a disaster. Why am I saying this? Why am I so pessimistic about the Democratic Party? Well, if you're new here, I hate the Democratic Party. I think they fucking suck. The only good part of the Democratic Party is the progressive wing. And part of the reason why the party sucks is because they don't put the progressive wing in power. Whether that's AOC, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, they don't want these folks to have power because they threaten the status quo, they threaten the system, they threaten the oligarchy. The establishment Democrat ticket for 2028 is Newsom Buttigieg. And I have a really funny feeling that's what we're going to get. If they put AOC on the ticket as vice president, it might be a little different. But even then, I'm not too hot on AOC right now either. And it comes down to, again, policy, specifically with Gavin Newsom. How he edges progressive policy, but fails to deliver on it. I'm telling you guys, the United States of America cannot afford another neoliberal goon as president. And that is what Gavin Newsom is. Regardless of how funny he is on Twitter, regardless of how excellently he plays politics, he is, at the end of the day, just another corporate Democrat. I'm stressing this point to you because I don't want you to get lost in the kerfluffle. I don't want you to get lost in all of the buzz surrounding Gavin Newsom and his recent postings. It's so imperative when you're studying up on these candidates to understand where they land on issues that are the most important to you and how that would translate nationally.
Clear front runner, at least according to the prediction markets. What we're seeing in California isn't staying in California, at least at this particular point.
Thanks, Harry. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
But we have to reverse engineer, reverse analyze this, and ask ourselves a question, pose the hypothesis. Why is Gavin Newsom polling so well all of a sudden? And it's because, as I said in the beginning, he is the only Democrat who is actually fighting against Donald Trump. The American voting base, the American electorate, is not stupid by any means. They are apathetic, if anything else. They have been turned off to mainstream politics after decades and decades of neoliberalism. They, however, still recognize what's happening in front of them, whether that be military in the streets, whether that be black bagging immigrants, whether that be the Republicans' constant demonization of trans people being weird, whether that's the bloated cost of living and their failures to address the cost of living crisis, whether that be global instability. People see all of this. And they see the party in power as perpetuating it, as they should, because they are just that, the party in power. But they also recognize that Democrats are not doing anything. Hakeem Jeffries is the Senate Minority Leader, and no one knows who he is. He posts on Twitter and gets 12 likes. He'll post on YouTube and get fewer views than I do, despite being the fucking most powerful person in the Democratic Party. Gavin Newsom is the only one fighting. And whether he's doing it disingenuously because he just likes to fight, or whether he actually hates Donald Trump or not, I can't say. I'm sure it's a little bit of both. I'm sure he despises Donald Trump, but I'm sure he also just loves the attention. He's a narcissist. That's why he's like, he's a public figure. He's a narcissist. But he's at least doing something. And people see him as doing something, doing like literally anything. It's not just posting on Twitter, because like anybody can post, but tackling the redistricting because Texas is doing it, speaking out against Donald Trump, literally the bare minimum. He's quite actually the only Democrat doing anything. And that's why people are tuning in. That's why people are responding so positively towards this. I just wish that it was somebody else who had the power to captivate an audience the way he does, while also supplying them a legitimately progressive policy prescription. It's for that reason why I always say that the perfect politician is Bernie Sanders' policy with Gavin Newsom's politics. And now we have Zohran Mamdani, who's somewhere in the middle, although he's not a national politician quite yet. But yeah, like this is why I'm torn. I'm torn on Gavin Newsom whenever he's in the news. There's a video on my YouTube channel, my love-hate relationship with Gavin Newsom. And it's literally for everything I just outlined, for how excellently he plays politics. His policy falls short. And with